Hello to anybody watching. We're back with another true crime case, and I'll put these off, but I just like to procrastinate, and you know, absence makes the heart grow fonder. So we're going to talk about the Laci Peterson case today. It is a Netflix documentary, has just been added in the UK. I don't know if it's new or not, or if it's just been added in the UK, but a lot of people are talking about it, so I thought I would jump on the bandwagon. This is the Gone Girl case, the case that inspired Gone Girl, but it's actually wilder than Gone Girl, not gonna lie, because it's true. Forgot to do my usual little disclaimer, just saying that I'm on Pearson researching this by myself, so if anything is incorrect, please do let me know. So we'll jump right into it. Laci Peterson was born May 4th, 1975, making her a Taurus. She generally could light up any room. Her smile is gorgeous. Go look at photos of her, she is stunning. She had an infectious laugh, she loved to bake, she loved to garden, she loved dancing. She was a cheerleader in high school, I believe, and she used to love making like choreographed videos with her friends in the living room, which I know I've got fond memories of doing that with like my sisters and my friends, so it's nice that they have those memories of her. And these videos are so cute and so funny of them all doing it together. Her family seem to be super close. Even to this day, they seem like they just have so much love and time to respect her memory and talk about her spirit and the joy that she brought to their lives. She was a model student in school, and she received an award for this called the Outstanding Freshman Award. Now, we don't have awards like that here in the UK, but I imagine if we did, big deal. So I think it was a big deal. She got this. And like I said, her friends still to this day just speak with so much admiration and fondness of Laci and her memory, which just is such a testament to her spirit. And overall, her as a person, she loved fiercely. She loved her friends, she loved her family, she loved her husband, and she was just so excited for her future and to be a mum. That was all she wanted to be, you know what I mean? That was her future, and she was very excited for it. Which of course unfortunately leads us to Scott Peterson. He was born at 24th of October 1972, making him a Scorpio. Say die. I'll say no more. And now Scott's mum Jackie has a crazy story that is not in everyone else's YouTube videos that I've watched about this. It's in some people's, of course, but not enough people talk about this. I just think it's so relevant and crazy. So Scott's mum Jackie, her dad, when she was very young, died, was murdered at Christmas time. And you'll see why that is relevant soon. But literally murdered. Craziness. Then she was put up for adoption. Or she was put into an orphanage. You'll see why I keep getting this confused, because I've done this like 5 times now. She was put into an orphanage because her mum obviously was dealing with this crazy loss and grief. She ended up going back with her mum eventually though, and looking after her mum. And when she done that, she was obviously in school and stuff, but she ended up getting pregnant at 19 and she put the kid up for adoption. This then happened again, she got pregnant again, she put that kid up for adoption. And then I believe there was another kid, and I believe his name was John, and I believe she kept him. Which obviously, no shame. If you get pregnant and you can't keep your kid, you gotta do what you gotta do. And then this is when she then meets Lee, and that is when they end up having Scott. Scott liked to hunt and fish and play golf. He had a golfing scholarship, so obviously he must have been really good. But he ends up getting kicked off the team because he loves the party life way too much. He just loves partying and drinking and the girls and the life. He gets swept up in it and he ends up getting kicked off his team. And then this is kind of leads us right up to when Laci and Scott end up meeting. So they meet in December of 1994. So Scott worked in a cafe that Laci and her friends used to go to, and there's clips in the documentary that say how Laci immediately really liked him and she would go there just to see him. And there was a story as well, I think she puts her number on a napkin that he ends up binning, not knowing her number is on it. But however they end up talking anyway, and apparently he can really put the charm on, and that is what happens. They then hit it off when they do start seeing each other. Her mum in the Netflix documentary was talking about how obviously she heard about Scott first, and she was she did have a bit of like a little seed of doubt in her stomach of all the stories that Laci was saying. She was a bit like, he's very young, how does he have all these stories, type of thing. And she does obviously now like think back to that and go, I maybe should have followed that instinct. But then when she meets him again, Scott puts on that charm and he charms her and she likes him and she doesn't feel worried anymore. They all really get along. Laci gets on with Scott's family, Scott gets on with Laci's family. They all really bond and become a big family. Laci really gets along in particular with Scott's mum. They loved gardening and Martha Stewart, and they used to watch that together. Now they eventually then get married in August of 1997, and around this time that is when Gracie? Who is Gracie? Laci graduates college in that December of 1997, and then Scott ends up graduating the next year in June in 1998. So then this is when Scott opens up a business with the help of his parents. It was like a sports bar / restaurant. Sound familiar? Everyone not been like, this should start to sound familiar for Gone Girl fans, but I've already said that's Gone Girl. So my sounds familiar is in relation to Gone Girl. But then eventually they were ready to settle down and they sold the place and they moved to Modesto. Scott's parents then gifted them 30k. I shit my pants. To get a house. Can you imagine? And that is when Laci then started working as a substitute teacher and Scott worked in sales at a fertilizer company. They lived very comfortably, and then Scott's dad gifted them another 30k. Where's this man just getting 30k from all the time? To open the Del Rio Country Club, which was like a members only club type thing for like golf and tennis, where you'd like go and you'd drink and you'd be like a little man's club, you know? So now Laci was very open with everyone about how she wanted to be a mum. That was like a big goal for her. She would talk to her mum about that a lot. However, Scott was not on board at that time. Laci, of course, like I said, tells her mum all of this, tells her mum as well that Scott doesn't want that at the minute. But then all of a sudden, 6 months after her having this big chat with her mum, they're trying. She tells her mum that they're trying for a baby, and her mum is like, I thought he didn't want a baby. And she's like, oh, he changed his mind. Which for me, 6 months, not enough time to make that decision. Not enough time. They start trying for a baby, and they do really struggle to get pregnant to begin with, to discuss like adoption options. But then miraculously, as that kind of discussion starting to happen, Laci does end up getting pregnant, and she obviously was so excited. She really loved like the idea of being pregnant and obviously of course having the baby, but she did have a very rough pregnancy. I think she still really took it in her stride and she loved being pregnant. She knew she was going to have what she wanted by the end of it, but she had what sounds like a really, really rough pregnancy. She experienced a lot of dizziness, a lot of sickness, which obviously is not uncommon. What's going on with my words today? Uncommon, but to the degree of she would get so sick and dizzy when she was out her walks because she was trying to stay really fit and active, that her doctor was like, you need to stop taking walks by yourself, you need to stop walking your dog. Like, he was like, do less. So that was how unwell she was getting, which I imagine for someone that was trying to keep fit during their pregnancy, that would have been tough, especially when you do have a dog as well. And also they had a Labrador, so it's not like they've got a Chihuahua. That's a big dog. A big dog needs long walks, and a strong dog as well for a pregnant woman to take a walk. But anyway, I digress. And then basically November of 2002, Laci decides to quit her job as she just like can't get to work because of how unwell she is during her pregnancy, and financially they can afford her not to go to work. So yeah, this is when Scott decides to buy a boat, but not tell anyone he's bought a boat. And it's unclear of whether Laci even know. No, they bought a boat. So weird timing. Maybe you've got a lot of money that like boat's not a big financial thing, but I buy myself a pair of socks and I tell my partner, you know what I mean? So weird. Yeah, so then 3 weeks before Christmas, Laci's gran unfortunately died, leaving the inheritance of 2 million to be split between Laci and her 2 siblings, and she would get that when she turns 30, and I believe she's like 27ish at this point. So that obviously happens at that Christmas. Obviously really really sad, hard time, especially when you're pregnant and your hormones are everywhere as well. So yeah, just keep that in mind as well. And then December 15th rolls around and Laci's mum comes over, and she's meant to have dinner with Laci and Scott, and it's meant to be like a big like pot lasagna dinner, which that's the one thing about American culture I can get on board. Major. But Scott was supposed to cook and he was nowhere to be seen. He was not home. He was apparently stuck at work. And that was kind of that. He was stuck, and I believe he arrives late and they have dinner and it's like cold. I think like the mum and Laci have dinner and it's pure cold and not cooked right. And Laci was clearly annoyed about it. Then December 24th on Christmas Eve is here. Laci is 27. I did think she was 27. And she's 8 months pregnant. Now, kind of from here on is like Scott's telling of this story of what happened. And I'm saying that because it chops and changes. So you'll need to pay attention. So basically, he says he wakes up at 8 a.m. and Laci is already eating breakfast. Then he later says that they have breakfast together. Like he wakes up and they have breakfast together, but Laci hasn't already eaten her breakfast. Laci told Scott that she was going to make some gingerbread cookies and go food shopping. And he tells Laci that he is going to go golfing. Again, keep that in mind. Neighbours confirm seeing Scott leave for the day, and they see him like load 3 huge patio umbrellas into his car, his like, truck that he's got. Then he says to the police that he changes his mind. He doesn't want to go golfing. He wants to go fishing instead. Random. And this is obviously new boat. First time he was going to use it. He decided to do it on Christmas Eve. And he decides to go fishing 90 miles away for his first time, which I think he'd been fishing loads of times before, but like not in his own boat. But I just feel like first time your new boat, you would go somewhere closer just to test it out. But yeah, what do I know about fishing? But then he forgot his bait. But then he was like, I'm going to keep trying anyway without bait. And I think that's quite important when you're fishing. I don't imagine that it's quite easy to get fish to impale itself without bait, but whatever. And they had no luck, and he ended up going home because he was cold and he was wet, and he went home. And then neighbours back at home, there are some neighbours that say that they saw Laci walking the dog around 10, and then the dog was then found running around outside their home with the lead still on. That was found by Scott when he comes home. So Scott gets home, he finds a dog like this, and he sees that Laci's car is gone. No, Laci's car isn't gone. But she's nowhere to be seen. He apparently thinks nothing of this, even though obviously she's told him the tasks for the day were walk the dog. No, she said gingerbread cookies and the groceries. So one would be in the house and then one is the shop, so you'd need her car, but whatever. He thinks nothing of it apparently, and he has food and he does a washing. He has a shower, and he then hears a message for Laci on the answer machine from her dad. And that's when he's a bit like, she's not here and she's not there. And he starts to think, apparently, this is when he starts to think, where is she? So then he calls Laci's mum and asks if she's seen Laci, and she says no. And he specifically in this phone call says the word missing. Like, he's like, she's missing. And Laci's mum's obviously like, missing? Like, at the time, I'm sure at the time when you're on the call, you wouldn't really notice it, but after in hindsight, she has like, it is weird to say the word missing immediately. Because wouldn't you do anything to be like, oh, she's not here now, you know what I mean? If it just happened, like, if that happened to me, I'd be like, oh, she's not here now, she must be here. I wouldn't be like, she's missing, you know what I mean? I wouldn't jump to that. And then obviously says about the car and the dog, and her mum is like, no, that's really not good, phone all our friends right now because that's weird. And then Sharon, Laci's mum, also tells Ron, Laci's stepdad or dad, I'm not sure, to phone the police. And she then goes straight to the dog park where Laci would walk to look for her. So the search begins. So obviously, because the dog has arrived home without lead on it, they do think that she's disappeared on this dog walk, and they search the area in case she like became faint, became dizzy or something, and there was an incident in the dog park. And now it's time for like Scott to talk to the police. So when Scott is then recanting this story to the police, this is when things start to change. He can't really tell the police exactly where he went or how long for, or the times exactly. He then starts to tell them like the equipment he was using, which the police obviously then go to check to corroborate, and some of them are like still in their packaging, so lying. You're lying, and we don't know why. And then he couldn't also tell them like what kind of bait he apparently forgot. So it's just silly things like that that are like, lie better, you know? And then some of the neighbours that then said that they definitely saw Laci then kind of admit that they just saw a woman walking a dog and they've assumed it was Laci. So it not really clear of whether it was or it wasn't. Some people are 100% like it was, and other people are like, it was a woman walking a dog, I didn't really see them properly. And then they also seen that Scott had googled like the tide times, like he hadn't googled other things, you know, maybe bait to remind him of stuff, but he had googled tide times, which is suspicious as well. When he came home and he did his washing, like I said, he only did like his washing, like the stuff he had on washing. He didn't do the washing, like put a whole load on. Again, alarm bells are ringing everywhere. He go to his work to see where he was keeping the boat, and they find loads of homemade anchors that he was making, which obviously you do need stuff like that for boating, so not crazy, but noted. And they are obviously immediately starting to tug on that Scott is like their main person, which is often in these cases, it's always the partner that gets looked at first, but he's really not helping himself, is he? But the Laci's family are super supportive of Scott's innocence to begin with. They're like, no way he wouldn't do this. Like, they're really like, you're looking at the wrong person. They're like, they're frustrated at the thought of them potentially wasting time looking at Scott. Search continues. Everyone fully expects to find Laci somewhere. Like, they don't know where, but they fully expect to find her. And during all this time, Scott really doesn't want to be in the stuff to do with the media, which I don't think in itself is admission of guilt. I know myself personally, I probably wouldn't want to do that. I probably wouldn't be in the mental space to do that. I also know that I am someone that struggles to seem emotive about things, so I do feel sympathy for people that genuinely have been innocent of things and they get such like slander and fake press, is that even the next saying, because they are not an emotive person in person. And I know that I would probably be like that in that situation. It takes a lot to break me, a lot to make me cry. I feel like if it was my partner or my family, it wouldn't, because they are like my kryptonite of things. If they're upset, I'm upset. But I know that there are things where I know I could cry, but I'm really good at not, you know what I mean? And I think I would find that hard. So my point is, I don't think that the way that you act in such a high pressure, all eyes on you situation is fair to immediately dictate your guilt, your innocence. You are innocent until you're proven guilty. And that's kind of my opinion on the portrayal of him in the media. I'll continue, but that's kind of my point on this. So, but the stuff with the police, I'm like, at least you should be cooperating 100,000 million trillion% with the police. So the police come and they are very candid and they're like, look, we need access to everything again, and we need access to your phone and your laptops and all your electronics. Can you sign this to give us access to that? And he's like, no, you don't think I'm going to do that without a lawyer? And obviously for me, that one, I'm like, yep, you have your right to privacy, but your wife is missing. So I think I would, I would unlock my phone, hand it over immediately, It's just not the time to be secretive. They've seen it all before. So if you want your wife back, I know that for me, no questions asked, you can have full access. See a search history, pop off. And then this second time, when obviously they do have the warrants to stuff, other than the electronics, at that moment, they go back to his work again and they notice that things have been tidied, like things have been moved, things have been tidied, and they are like, weird. December 29th, a woman called Amber is telling her friends about a guy she's been seeing. They're chatting away, she's talking about how great he is, and then she mentions the name. She says, drumroll, his name is Scott Peterson. And the friend is like, "Really recognise that name? That's weird." And then her friend goes, "I think I know why I recognise that name." Shows her all the stuff in the press about him and gives her the hotline number for information, obviously, about Laci. Can you actually imagine if that happened to you? Craziness. I feel so bad for Amber. Obviously, feel terrible for Laci as well for having such a disgusting scumbag of a husband, but also feel very bad for Amber. So basically, Amber calls this line and she says, "Hi, I thought I was seeing Scott, didn't know he was married, what's going on?" And the police jump on this and they're like, "Okay, terrible, but we can use this to our advantage." So Amber starts working with the police and she continues with Scott like nothing's happened. She lets him phone her, she lets him like, you know, talk, blah 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 blah, you know what I mean? And from now on, all these calls are recorded. During the time that they were seeing each other, he obviously didn't say he was married, he didn't say he had a pregnant wife, let alone just being married. His wife was fucking pregnant. And he also like would say that he travelled a lot like for work, which is obviously how he explained his absences when he was at home. And he told Amber that he would be travelling a lot over the festive period, like Christmas and New Year. And obviously up until December 29th, she fully thinks that's the script. Also in all this, Amber has a daughter who Scott like meets. He's met her during the time that they were seeing each other, and he said he would treat the daughter like his own, which just really insult to injury when you've literally got a wife who's pregnant with your child at home. While Amber is discussing everything with the police, she tells them of a story about how on December 9th, Scott comes to see Amber and he immediately turns on the waterworks and he starts crying, saying that he's been lying to her and he feels terrible. And he informs Amber that his ex-wife, a wife he didn't tell her about, so he says that he used to be married and his ex-wife had just died. What a weird story. And that this would be his first Christmas without her, and that was why he was lying to her, I think. Who knows? And then he then really changes the script and starts saying how he just wants to be a family with her and he wants to treat her daughter as his own and blah 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 blah. And she's like, whoa, whiplash, but my god, okay. So obviously when she tells the police that story, they're like, "So before your wife went missing, you were telling someone you were having an affair with that she was dead, that she just died. This would be your first Christmas without her." And from this, obviously loads of really interesting audio has came from it. And one of the most interesting ones is at New Year, where he calls her and she's literally slates this. She's like, "Oh, just wish for New Year you didn't need to travel so much." So obviously like putting on the charm to see the things he'll say, even though she now knows exactly the script. And he then turns on the charm and he's like, "Oh, I just always think about how great we're going to be together, and I know I wish that I have to travel so much as well." And it's just so bloody telling, because this phone call he's taken, he is literally at the candlelit vigil for his missing wife. They are all there, his family, friends, everyone, looking for Laci at this candlelit vigil for New Year, and he phones her to say all this. He's literally the worst. Now eventually these photos of Amber and Scott end up getting leaked, because as these things do. And when this happens, I feel so bad for Amber, because she just gets called everything in the press, mistress, whatever, all this stuff, which isn't true, because mistress, you know, the person you're seeing is married. She never did, so no. Their phone calls are like so important at this time. He's given it, "I never cheated on you, I wouldn't do that." I don't even know, I actually don't know how she managed these phone calls, like I really, really don't. After all this, Amber very bravely makes a public statement just saying how like horrified she is by it all, how she wasn't a mistress, she had no idea he was married, and yeah, she just makes a really short and simple statement just to kind of clear the air about it. And Laci's friends end up thanking her for doing that, because they totally could see how much courage that took for her to do it, which I think is like a nice wee silver lining of it all, like kind of solidarity of women coming together during such a horrible time like this, is now when Laci's family take a turn against Scott. They're like, okay, you can do this, and they're starting to doubt everything else. If you can do something like that, what else can you do? One of those ones, like, cheating obviously is not as bad as murder, of course it's not, but I think cheating is just such a sign of your character, of your morals, of how low you actually can go, and how disregard you have for people you love's emotions, disregard you have for like the respect you're meant to have in these relationships you're in. Like, I do think it is hugely telling of your character. Yeah, cheers are the worst, and I think it takes a level of serious narcissism as well to do that. Anyway, the police are aware of like the surmountable like public opinion of Scott, but they need a body, and they are told that by their higher ups that they need a body to prove it. They're searching every body of water they can, and Scott is also being followed, and he does repeatedly keep returning to like the Bay Area. He'll like return, park, set up, leave, go away for a few hours, and do it again. Like, he does it quite a lot. And there was a day that they found like an anchor, and obviously his phone is still tapped, and when he gets left a voicemail basically getting told that it's just an anchor, it's not a body, it's just an anchor they end up finding. And apparently after that phone call, he's like giving sigh of relief, not giving sigh of like distraught, like, oh my god, I was so worried it would be my wife and she'd be dead, like I'm so glad it's not her body. It was giving sigh of relief, like they've not fucking found her yet. All this, Scott didn't do any interviews, but all of a sudden he then turns around and he's like, I'm gonna do interviews then, I'm gonna do them but on my time, on my watch, my rules. So he starts to invite people to his house, like literally shifts them in, and they're not allowed to wear their shoes when they come in. So weird, like so odd. Like, I wish I could have been one of those reporters to get the dynamic of this. And the interviews are terrible. He fumbles a bag major. I don't know what he thought he was achieving from them, but he just seems even more unlikable. He is asked like the most simple question of what do you love about Laci, and he cannot answer it. And I know none of the general public are trained for media, they're not, but you can answer a question like that. Like, he literally's like, he's mumbling, being like, oh, you can see in our pictures. Doesn't say what you can see in our pictures, and then he does say her smile eventually, and then he eventually says as well how they complete each other, but like, I just can't. It is actually pathetic. February 10th rolls around, and that is Laci's due date. That's when she was meant to have what was meant to be their baby boy called Connor. And they have a candlelit vigil for this. This date, however, does also happen to be Amber's birthday, and Scott was apparently trying to get a birthday present and trying to see her. You're having a candlelit vigil for your unborn child that you have no idea where that is at this minute. Police get another warrant for his house. When they then go, it's evident that he's sold Laci's car, and he is talking about how he wants to sell the house. He doesn't want to be there, he wants to sell the house. When they go, they then can see how he's rearranged all the house with just like no regard to Laci's things. He's dumped so much stuff in the nursery. Like, they had a beautiful little like nautical, is that the word? Themed nursery, like sea themed nursery, and he's dumped so much stuff in it, like it's a storage room at that point. And he's like, yeah, well, we're not gonna live here, but even if she comes back, we're not gonna live here. And okay, if you think that is a script, but could you not wait? When they're also doing this, they also search his work, and when they search his work, and the boat, of course. So when they're searching his work, they now find pliers, and the pliers, they then do a test, and it seems to match Laci's hair. But it doesn't have like the root or something, so they can't like 100% match it, but it does match what, like, it's very close match basically to her hair. And now on April 13th, very tragically, a small body was found in the Bay Area, and the next day another body was found, and this was then confirmed to be Laci and Connor Peterson. The state of Laci's body was really horrible. I think it was like her torso that was found first, which of course gives you an immediate image of the state of her body. She was detached from the rest of her limbs and her head. And Connor, as I said, was found first, and he was obviously detached from Laci's body, which I didn't know could happen. My Google searches are scary right now, but I didn't know it could happen. So obviously it must have been really traumatizing for all their family and like the people that found the poor body and had to deal with that. So it's arrest time. Scott was booking it. He knew he was done for. He is driving, and he is driving so chaotically that like helicopters that are chasing him keep losing him. He's dyed his hair, he's packing his bags, he's off. Like he's gone. He's gone. And I'm sorry if all that is not giving guilty. What actually is? Like, why are you that scared? Apparently he had 15k, he had camping gear, he had credit cards, he had his brother's passport and Viagra. Apparently that's important when you're running from the law because you've killed your wife. His trial was then set for June 1st, 2004, and of course he had the best of best lawyers. And he was really intimidating to people on the stand. He did make a joke at some of the prosecution's arguments, so like he was obviously a good lawyer. He like pointed out how Scott had said that in the morning they had been watching Martha Stewart, him and Laci, and he spoke about meringues, and the prosecution's argument was that there was no segment about meringues, and then that lawyer showed how there was. They do mention meringues. So it was just like silly things like that, but like obviously when you're got a jury in front of you, stuff like that then does take away the prosecution's reliability. Of course, frustratingly, there's no DNA in the body because it'd been in the water. But all together, everything else, the evidence is so damning. Like Amber, of course, does take the stand. She does so well. She even says that she thinks that Scott's lawyer was getting annoyed at her because she wasn't being like cut and dry with her answers. She was giving like long-winded answers, but she wasn't getting flustered. She was just, he was asking what he was calling a simple question. She was like, well, it's not, and giving him a longer answer. She didn't know, however, the calls that they had were going to be played in court, which is a shame because obviously they are now readily available to the public. So yeah, as much as she didn't know those phone calls were going to be played, she knew she was there for Laci and Connor, and that was like helping her be strong during it all. Now on November 12th, 2004, Scott was convicted of 2 counts of first degree murder for Laci and Connor. His whole family to this day still think he was innocent. His sister like became a lawyer or something to try and help him like fight for his innocence. I'll tell you my opinions at the end, but I think we can tell I don't think he's innocent. He did end up being sentenced to death by lethal injection, which then did end up being then overturned because it was found that like the jury that they used was like quite a biased jury, so that ended up being rescinded, but he's still like life in prison without the possibility to parole, which obviously good, justice served as it should be. Theory time. As a theory, not fact. But some people believe that Laci died before the 24th of December. They believe that she was probably killed by like strangulation or smothering, something quiet, easy to clear up. People then believe that she was put in a tarp that was then put in the back of his truck. That is then why those patio umbrellas were being loaded into the back of his truck to hide the fact there was a tarp in the back of his truck. Then obviously all you need to do is get that to his boat to the water and sink them. Obviously there's no anchor found, so it is believed they may use something else to weigh them down. But he obviously was just wildly arrogant in the fact that he just thought they would never come back up. But that is a theory that I do think holds a lot of weight. Obviously the thing with the dog is weird. Some people think he was smart enough to do that. I'm not sure where I stand on that one. I don't think he was smart, but I also think he was extremely arrogant, so he might have thought to do something like that. But yeah, the dog for me is the one thing that is weird, and I don't know how I feel about it. And obviously there are witnesses that do say they saw her, so it's a theory for that reason. I also think that the thing for me is the whole insurance thing from Laci's grand dying, him apparently being in debt potentially, then telling Amber that she was already dead. Like it's just like, even if you're not guilty, you've got the worst luck to have done all those things to then be innocent, you know what I mean? as well, in a documentary I was watching, there was a really smart woman, I don't know what she does, I can't remember, but she was so smart, and she was just talking about how like there's styles of lying, of course, and his style of lying was like really short-sighted. He would like lie about something that he could very easily be caught out about, and that was just like his style of lying. Which is interesting that there's stuff like that, and I think like stuff like that you can't really unlearn. Like if you do that, like people that you meet that are compulsive liars, and they just say shit, and you can see in their eyes they can't stop lying, but you just go along with it because you're like, I'm not gonna call you out for being a liar, but you're lying. So I want to take some time to talk about her family again, because her mum, like, just she's such an icon. She's so strong and brave. Documentary, like, she was talking about like things she said during her like what's it called, like victim impact statement, and how she was saying just really simple but really powerful things, being like, you might not have wanted Laci anymore, but that doesn't mean you had the right to kill her. And it's stuff like that that I just don't understand. Like, if you don't want to be with someone anymore, don't be with them, don't cheat on them, don't murder them, literally just break up with them. Be the bigger person in a hard situation and break up with someone, rather than lying and all this other crazy stuff to get out of things. Like, I don't understand that logic, and if something's seriously wrong with you when you do that. A few wee quotes I've got here is, you, Scott, are proof that evil can lurk anywhere. Why did you murder her, Scott? That's an answer we'll never get. How dare you murder her? She was my daughter. I wanted her and always will. I'll never meet my grandson. What kind of person would he be? Would he cry when he has his picture taken with Santa? I'll never know, because his father murdered him. And the last one for me that I've got written down here is so powerful. I find solace in the knowledge that you sentenced yourself to death when you murdered Laci. Like, she came swinging, as she quite rightly should. Scott never took the stand during his trial, which again, for me, I just think is again, you can't fault people for their rights, but again, evident of he knew he'd crumble, he knew he would get confused, he knew the cracks in his story would show. So yeah, like I said, Gone Girl is fiction based on this, and the story itself I actually think is way crazier. I do however think that Ben Affleck done a really good job of portraying how unlikable Scott is, and just the parallels that you do see in the footage across the film is really interesting. We all think of this case, it is such a mental one. It just makes me so angry. I hate, obviously no one likes cheers, but I just hate cheers, and especially for, not especially because no one deserves to be cheated on, but when it's someone who clearly had so much love to give and wouldn't have harmed a fly, it's so extra tragic. I lost a bit of footage here, but was just summarising the case, and of course reiterating the loving spirit of Laci Peterson. Let me know what case you want me to do next time, and then thoughts, theories, opinions, all welcome. And if you don't want to do it in my comments, message me, because some people have been messaging me suggestions, and I will see you all next time. Bye!